Be the Plume goon, just start down, need permission, now I stay real with it. Lay a one foundation, know it's gon' build, bro, I been biddle with it. Your homeboy check the cash out, smart contracts with a cash out. Everybody want smoke till I turn the dare, show you where the house at. Spun the block, turns out I been Blackrue.
What's going on, everybody? This is Underdog Research Channel here with another research video. What we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about Plume Network. We're going to talk about something I think is interesting, the new financial system. Now, I started to look into this over a year ago, and I started to go into the depths of my research, and I made some magnificent discoveries. Today, I'm going to walk through that discovery. I feel that oftentimes with crypto, we are in a space where you get so much information. It's a shotgun blast. You don't know what to focus on. So the intent for today is to bring up not a silo, not just one project, but to focus on three intersecting areas: SWFT blockchain, Plume Network, and a B2 network. But I'm not going to take my time to focus on the cryptocurrency specifically. I want to focus on a bigger connection. So let's talk about that bigger connection. Before we get into it, I advise you to put this on a large computer screen, put this and scan it, share it, whatever you need to do so you can see the visuals. I take a lot of time to do research. I take even more time to put in the visuals so you can see it. Otherwise, you won't see the significance of this conversation. The new banking system, the new financial system, Neo Financial. Recently, I gave a conversation about this new phrasing of the new financial system, bringing together ecosystems from traditional finance, crypto, and seeing it all together. Who's the top players? But there is something even deeper that if we pay attention to, we'll keep getting there early. I'm going to show you today how I've been early for years on different projects, because I'm traveling through a different way of viewing it. I'm traveling through viewing it by the connections, who they are connected to, the technology, not just in the usage of that technology, but where we're going to be. If you ever shoot a weapon, and I like firearms, so if you ever shoot a firearm, one of the things that you'll notice about shooting at a target that is moving versus a target that is stationary is that if you shoot at a target that's stationary, like, just go out to a firing range and shoot, it's easier. If you shoot at a moving target, you have to anticipate where the item or thing that you're shooting at will be. And that way you can get a good shot. You got to look at the way that you hold your rifle or your handgun. You have to anticipate where it's going. Now, I'm going to share with you something that I think is a great anticipation of what is going to happen. Recently, again, I did this review of the roll-up on January 16, 2026. We saw over 587,000 people look at this new ecosystem map with 100 plus projects building the new financial system by a group called the Roll-Up, and they created this catchphrase called the Neo Finance. Now, let's start the conversation right there by bringing in Plume Network and Animoca Brands. Recently, Plume Network and Animoca Brands had a conversation because they featured Plume Network. And I'm going to read from this right here, this research that was an article published by Animoca Brands, and we'll talk about who they are in a second. But let's go up to this new latest research, which is the premise of the conversation today. I can't go forward without talking about that. Let's go to it. This is what we found out. Regulation central to real-world assets development in 2026. Regulation remains the gating factor for global scale. Jurisdictions differ in how they classify and supervise tokenized assets. Now, with that, increasing compliance costs and slowing cross-border adoption. That's going to be important that we talk about that in a moment. this is something we need to discuss. In 2026, we expect more consistent guidance from security regulators and clear licensing pathways. In 2026, we'll also see the impact of industry sandboxes, standardized issuance flows, and more integrated KYC, know your customer, custody, and trading, stacks from regulated providers. Now, these will hide operational complexity and make onboarding and transacting with real-world assets feel more like traditional fintech. Combined with regulator infrastructure collaboration through ongoing pilots like the work Plume has done in 2025 in the US and Hong Kong, this reduces legal ambiguity and gives institutional actors confidence to scale production developments. Now, I just read a full page of this article. Before we finish, we're going to go through 3 pages, but let me pull out something from this article. I told you put this on big screen. This is what I want you to pull out from this article. 1, it says that there is a slowing of cross-border adoption. There is increasing in compliance, and there's a supervision of tokenized assets. And the places they say this has been done, we see Hong Kong, that's China, and we see the United States. So even right here, we have a lot of information. But if you don't recognize that Animoca Brands, who they are, and you don't recognize Plume Network, who they are, all this is really fluff. You don't really understand the connection. So let me help you understand the connection. Animoca Brands is the world's largest #1 Web3 developer with hundreds, over 500 companies who they have some connection with under the Animoca brand label. I've talked about them for years. They are a great player in this space. Plume Network is the #1 in real-world assets. You can go to rwa.xyz. That's a website you can go to that shows global RWAs, and you can see that they're #1. They have a lot of big players and institutions connected to them. So I want you to first see that this article isn't by happenstance and coincidence. The article in itself already shares a connection that we see Animoca Brands and Plume Network sharing the stage. Now, in that article, we see them talking about Hong Kong, China, and the slowing of cross-border payments. We see the increasing of regulation, and we also see the security and infrastructure that's being built in 2026. So now I want to bring this to a bigger connection. But to do that, I gotta give credit completely to one of the greatest there is in the space of research, my friend, Blackrue Investing. Now, if you don't know who Blackrue Investing is, then that's fine. Let me share that with you. Blackrue Investing has been in the space for years. He has been in the stock. He has been into crypto, and he merges together one of the best products you can have by putting together research over the hype. Now, the reason I need to spotlight his research, because as a researcher myself, I have to use sources that I trust. I have to go to sources I can verify. And Blackrue Investing is the source that I first found out about a huge connection that we're going to talk about today, which we're going to focus on as we discuss Plume Network, Swift Blockchain, the B2 network, and a huge connection between them all that you must pay attention to if you want to anticipate what will happen next. What is that connection? Tim Draper. Blackrue Investing, over 2 years ago, started with a video called Swift Crypto Tim Draper, Crypto's Quiet King. Now, this was 2 years ago. I followed the same project, Swift Blockchain, and I have to be 100% honest. When I found out that Tim Draper had an investment into Swift Blockchain, I viewed it as a footnote. I did not at the time even recognize the significance of it. And if it wasn't for Blackrue Investing's in-depth, the best, and the most detailed coverage of Tim Draper on the World Wide Web, period, I would not have even seen this connection. With that in mind, I see the same issue as I go forward and I try to show others about connections in these different networks. If you don't recognize the significance of the data within the data that you're looking at, then you won't get it. And you can't be there first. You're doing hope. You're guessing. That's not guess. In this video, Blackrue starts off introducing Tim Draper to the audience, which is you. And that was 2 years ago. He follows this up with another one called Swift Blockchain, the Drapers, 3 generations of Drapers. He goes all the way to England. He comes back. He goes to Switzerland, and he goes back to United States. Look at the maps on the back of these images. He talks about Coinbase. This is his images. 2 years ago, he is telling you, he talks about England, he talks about Switzerland, he talks about the connection to Tim Draper's 3 generations back. He goes hundreds of years back. Now, you might think, why does that matter? Bitcoin didn't start until, in the 2000s. So why would it matter he goes hundreds of years back? Because he followed the money to the roots, the origins, and that's what we have to do in order to see what's happening with Plume. I want to center this on that connection. Now let's go further more. Blackrue Investing then went further. He shows you another video on Tim Draper, one of over 100 videos in which he referenced Tim Draper's family, but this one particularly, Tim Draper banks and exchanges controlling the wealth flow. Now, he's telling you there, he went from introducing Tim Draper, he goes back 3 generations of the Drapers, then he introduces you to the fact that the Drapers control the wealth flow. If you don't know who Tim Draper is, you didn't understand the heritage, if you can't understand that they are controlling the wealth flow. Keep that in mind, folks. He did this 2 years ago. Then Blackrue shows off. What does he do? He does this. He comes back. He says, let me show you that in 2024, not only they control the wealth flow, but I can connect them to multiple global networks. Hence, he introduced the significance, the relevance, and the necessity to understand the players behind the networks. If you follow the networks and cryptocurrencies, you must then follow the companies. If you follow the companies, you got to find out where that money's coming from. And when you find out where that money's coming from, you got to see who it's connected to. And when you find out who it's connected to, you got to apply that to the cryptocurrency. Failure to do that is a mistake. He made no mistakes. Now, I want to introduce you to this fact. How to spot the next big startup with Tim Draper. I'm going to share with you a little known but overlooked fact. Bitcoin has no intrinsic value. Now, I said that and I hesitated on purpose. It's supposed to be a store of value. But let's talk about Bitcoin. If you hold a Bitcoin, that's exactly the key word. Even the way you talk about it, you hold a Bitcoin. People are not spending Bitcoin. You see MicroStrategy, you see other companies, you see Tesla. I could go on and on. We can talk about it. Companies are holding Bitcoin. They're not spending Bitcoin. So that means, if you think about it, as countries, people, and wealth holds on to Bitcoin, it creates a stored value. Matter of fact, it's one of the best networks if you think about it. But the problem is it's so transparent. The problem is we got to find a way to use it. How do you use something that no one wants to sell? Because they see it as a protection against the economy, and for various reasons. This is going to be the premise that we talk about today as we discuss the huge connection that I have unveiled for you through looking at this money. Let's talk about it. Let me bring something up. Let's bring up an introduction to Tim Draper. And let me share a video that's 120 seconds long that you're going to need to watch in order to better understand that you may not know who he is, but you're going to need to know who he is because it's going to help you recognize Plume Network, B2 Network, and Swift blockchain are interconnected. That is the purpose of this whole video. Now, if you want to see that connection, then pay attention. This is what you need to see.
As crypto investors is back to over 30 unicorns, including Tesla, SpaceX, Skype, Coinbase, and Robinhood, just to name a few of his big winnings. Joining us right now, venture capitalist Tim Draper. He's the founder and managing director of Draper and Associates. Good morning to you, Tim. It's great to see you. As I mentioned, you have been early and early often with a lot of things, and one of them is Bitcoin. You have a particular view that we are about to go on a new rocket ship as it relates to Bitcoin.
Bitcoin is a hedge against bad governance, against government spending, inflation. Bitcoin is your alternative that allows you to deal with the major changes that are happening in government policies over time. You're seeing it in many, many different places, and it's sort of Bitcoin started in places where you wouldn't expect something to start. They weren't confident about currencies. And over the long haul, we're seeing government spending just, uncontrolled, and it just keeps going. Government spending as a percentage of GDP has gone on a rapid tear over the last 100 years. And it doesn't look like it's slowing down in any way. And your only hedge against that kind of government spending is Bitcoin. Our government is spending more money, and that takes away from the free markets. I'm a believer in free markets. I'm a believer in free trade, and where the government gets involved, it always slows down the economy. And that's true in every situation, every government. Socialism just never has worked, never will work. So many better ways to operate. But I mean, I think as an investor, a hedge against all of bad governance is to buy Bitcoin. So I think this is a really good time for Bitcoin. I think the government is aligned with us in saying, hey, we're going to create clear regulations for cryptocurrencies and stable coins and a number of other new technologies. And at the same time, government spending just keeps going up. And it doesn't matter whether it's Republican or a Democrat in there.
I get that there's obviously a limited amount of Bitcoin, or there will be in this world. So that argument obviously stacks up relative to fiat currencies. But when you see other cryptocurrencies take off, like Ethereum has in the last few months, I guess there's a pushback to the Bitcoin argument, which is there's not a limited amount of cryptocurrencies out there. So what's the argument against that there can't be debasement via just new cryptos appearing and soaring like Ethereum has?
Oh, I think there will be many other cryptocurrencies. Competition is good for the world, but as a percentage of all cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, with the first boom, they had 40% market share, and with the next boom, they had 50% market share, and now market share is running around 61, 62%. Over time, the dominant supplier builds the strongest network, and so all the programmers program to that dominant supplier. A lot of really interesting, innovative things happened when Microsoft was getting going, and they were the platform everybody built on. But there were a few really important applications, and they all got ported to Microsoft. Well, the same thing's happening now with Bitcoin. all of these smaller cryptocurrencies are experimenting and doing interesting things, and all the great engineers are porting those to Bitcoin. And so there is a gravitational pull toward Bitcoin, and yeah, there are other currencies that will come up as flashes in the pan. But I think overall, we've got a major trend toward Bitcoin.
Overall, a major trend toward Bitcoin. Let's break down what Tim Draper just said. That's your introduction. I'm reintroducing Tim Draper. I recommend every single person who's watching this goes and follows Blackrue Investing, because he is the source on the whole internet who has the most in-depth, consolidated review of Tim Draper. That's important. One of the first ones I'll have you to look at is Crypto's Quiet King. They then go through Draper's The Three Generations, go through Draper, the exchanges and banks, and then you will find this out for yourself. Now, how to spot the next big startup with Tim Draper. He talks about Bitcoin. He talked about Microsoft, and he used a metaphor. He referred to Bitcoin just like Microsoft. He said, at one point in time, Microsoft was where everyone built. We wasn't talking about building on Apple or IBM. At one point in time, it was Microsoft. The government bought Microsoft computers, private sector, Microsoft. The developers learned to code and use it for Microsoft. The most dominant presence started to rule in those areas. So we're talking about the NVIDIAs came out. We're talking about programmers came from that space to create great things. He said that we'll transport, just like Microsoft did, those people come develop the best and the best. People are transferring to Bitcoin. You rely on Bitcoin. So if you know you don't sell Bitcoin, you know that you rely on Bitcoin, but you don't sell it, what can you do with it? How can you make Bitcoin valuable from use case, not from holding it? We're not talking about price action valuable. We're talking about companies recognizing that they're building off of something that has a stored value. One of the best values, because no one's selling it. A secured network that you can't literally have enough money to buy the 51% you need to do the 51 attack on Bitcoin network. How do you use it? And why is that connected to Plume Network, Swift blockchain, and the B2 network? Well, let's recognize something. Neo finance markup. Recently, I showed with this conversation about Neo finance markup. Neo means new, the new financial markup. Now, this was another person's product, so it was the roll-up. And they talked about the 100 best products being built, and all the cryptocurrencies, thousands out there. They identified 100 best products that got over what we found out. We found out it got over 587,000 views. The roll-up did that. I didn't do that work. I just want you to see that for yourself. Now, who is the roll-up? There are an organization of people who talk about crypto, blockchain, and where it's going. Why am I using that here? Because I think we should pay attention to what they said. And this is why. They picked out all these cryptocurrencies, narrowed them down, and look to the left. What did you find? Plume Network was one of these. Now, if we dig deeper into that, that is important, because we can see right here that Plume Network was chosen as one of the best in all of the ones there. I didn't say this. This is someone else giving this information. Now, I also believe that Plume Network is there, but I want you to understand, we're about to see how the bigwigs are spotting the next big startup. Plume Network is one of those big startups, but it's not only about Plume Network. We're going to talk about three things today. If you leave here and only think about one thing today, you're wrong. Three things today: Plume Network, Swift blockchain, the B2 network, and overall its value to Bitcoin. the ecosystem. And who is saying it? Where the money comes from. The people controlling the money rails, the drapers, is this conversation. Let's talk about it. So we go into it. I got to make sure that we also note that in that same network, who do we have to give an eye wink and a head nod to? They put in the same section, World Liberty Finance. Is that a coincidence? Of all the thousands of projects out there, they used a company that is connected to the highest levels of government right now in this current administration, and has made deals that will last even after this administration is no longer in power. This is not a coincidence. Why is it that this connects these two players? Big money being recognized by this project, Plume. But you think it's just a coincidence. It's not. And this is not even getting started to. We found out January 15, 2026, that again, a second partnership, a yield-bearing, built-on Plume Network, World Liberty Finance. So we find that this is connected to the Plume Network. This is a partnership that we talked about last year, way before they became partners. I told you beforehand that I saw a connection between Chris Yen going all the way to Washington, D.C., taking pictures with the president and the vice president, having conversations, and then putting that out there months before they had this partnership. Again, I'm following the power. I'm following the money. I'm seeing how other individuals who have money and power are recognizing this project, but that is not the core. This conversation is about seeing it connections and whittling down that knowledge so you can see it too. So what have we learned? We was right here with Neo Finance, the new finance markup. That's all Neo means. It means new, the Latin word for new, the new financial markup. Who are the best, biggest, and baddest in this space? So what did we first find out? We find that in this biggest and baddest, Plume Network is also looked at as one of the biggest and baddest under stable coins and RWAs. Now, you know Plume from real world assets, but do you realize that the stablecoin is the only proven real world asset? Because stablecoins are exactly that. They're real world assets, but people don't consider that. So they gave a different name. They call it a stablecoin. That's why you see Plume right here under stablecoins, because they, as we just saw with World Liberty Finance, have stablecoin accessibility. And this is going to be key for the new financial system, the stablecoin itself. Builders of stablecoins, the PUSD, as well as the number one in RWAs. This is not a coincidence, but let's talk about this. So we look at this network. We just started off with the Neo network. Let's talk about the Plume network. So going into the Plume network, what do we find? See, let me show you. Look at that. That's the problem with technology. And that's the problem with information. So when you're getting everything through a shotgun blast, you don't know what to pay attention to. Look at that. Look at all the networks. This is not even half all the networks. This is outdated. But it gives you a sense, even if you look at this, over 100 connections there. What do you focus on? Well, I want you to focus on one thing only, is let's whittle it down and see if we can keep connecting it back to the power, to the money, to the connections that go 3 generations back. Let's see here. So if we focus on this, what can I find out that connects this and narrows it down? Well, this is what it does. Backers of Plume. This whole network wouldn't be available unless it was backed. Who backed Plume? Remember, I told you at the very beginning, we're going to always work our way backwards to get to the power, to get to the money. So who are the backers of Plume? Let's see here. Brevin Howard, hedge fund billionaire. Animoco Brands, the same one who made the article, $1 billion company, $6 billion company, and Hasky. So let's see here. So now we just found out that the backer, the same one that we started off with, a Plume Network itself, is Animoco Brands. I wonder if we start talking about Animoco Brands before. We're going to keep going. These networks. Here we go again. Now I got the B2 network. And I want you to see what I'm doing here. This is not a trick. This is for you to see. This is what you get every single day in your online web. You're looking at a massive amount of projects you have to search through, but you don't know what is important. Let me show you connection. Don't forget the meaning of this conversation. Remember what this is about. Keep it in mind. I told you put this on big screen when we first started. The conversation is about Plume Network, SWIFT blockchain, and the B2 network. No matter what I go through, remember these three conversations are condensed to one topic, and then I'm going to connect it all back to this article that we first started talking about, Animoca Brands and Plume Network. And they talk about regulation and the slowing of cross-border payments. And then I'm going to bring it right back to where we started with Blackrue Investing's coverage of Tim Draper, the best resource possible if you truly want to find out what's going to happen next so you can spot the next big startup. That's what we're doing here. It's hard to be early, but it's beautiful when you are. So let's keep going. So the B2 network, what do we see? Right here, you see something small there. What is that small thing I have shown there? Well, let me share with you what the B2 network covers. First, before I show you that, the B2 network covers Asia and China. Now, that is the main players in the B2 network. So if you like Coinbase and you think Coinbase is the biggest and baddest for the United States, Coinbase isn't accessible worldwide, globally. You have to go to the networks. What's the network? For big Asia countries, you can look at the B2 network. But what does the B2 network mean? The B squared network, the Bitcoin squared network. It's a network that uses Bitcoin for a store of value and builds off of Bitcoin, the blockchain itself. So before we even move past what this little small circle I got showing you here that we're about to pay attention to, you need to understand that one, it's connected to where? Asia and China. Two, you need to recognize what the product itself, B2 network, does. It's not Ethereum based. It's not Polygon based, but it has a connection to Polygon. It is building products like Microsoft, just like Tim Draper said, using Bitcoin as the stored value that you're not going to sell to get benefit and use from it. That is the product. And just imagine all of the companies, as we see in the ecosystem, who use Bitcoin, and notice that you don't recognize a lot of them, but there is one that you will recognize. So I told you that we're going to give a little eye nod to Polygon, because Polygon's going to come up. You got to understand what's the network of Polygon. It's India. This is not the conversation today, but I want you to keep that in your mind as you go back, that I want to mention things that are on this network. So on this network, Polygon's there, and you got to understand there is a connection to Polygon to India, but that's not the conversation today. Also on this network, I got to give an honorable mention to is EigenLayer. EigenLayer is something that you have heard from me before. This is still not the conversation today. I'm going to keep you focused on this one product right here that I have circled. And that, my friends, is Path Protocol. So we see Path Protocol. Again, you don't know what this is because you probably have never looked it up. You probably have never researched it. Only if you follow my platform have you seen this come up before. See, you didn't probably recognize most of these projects in this ecosystem because you may not live in Asia or China, and you just think that billions of people don't matter. Their money doesn't matter to you, right? Or you're wrong, right? So we're going to talk about this scene in the network, the blockchain network, of B2 network for Bitcoin stored value, Path Protocol, which builds off of that. Using Path Protocol, you have a stored value, and it also produces products, just like Microsoft. As Tim Draper said, builders are building in the Path Protocol. But what is Path Protocol? We're going to keep going backwards. This is what you need to know. Path Protocol is actually not called Path Protocol. I'm telling you, over the last 2 years, I've talked about this particular subject. I can't seem to figure out why if a spade isn't called a spade, that people won't investigate the new name for it. What I mean by that is, if you get a book of cards, you got an ace of spades, you got a heart of spades, right? You got a spade, it can be a lot of different books. You know, you got an ace in all the different books. What I'm trying to say here is that sometimes we have to understand that in different networks, the same product is called something differently. Walmart has Sam's Club. We know they separated, but we know who the owners are. Walmart and Sam's Club started together. They separated because they didn't want to take over everything. The government wouldn't let them do that. But we recognize if we go to Sam's Club, it's still connected to the same ownership. Make sense? I need you to understand. Follow this path with me. Don't forget this key element. Path protocol has another name. That name is MetaPath, Path Finance. Who do they service? They service United States, Asia, Singapore, and other global markets. But I want to mention the biggest. Asia is not just China alone. We're talking about Japan. We're talking about South Korea, North Korea. We're talking about the Asia in its entirety. Billions of people, trillions of dollars, and then the United States and Singapore as well. That's who they service. Now, what is MetaPath? MetaPath, the brief overview, is a blockchain asset smart routing protocol that integrates any tokenized assets, that's cryptocurrencies, NFTs, gamify, and metaverse gears and items, forming a metaverse cloud while realizing blockchain data interconnectivity through a messaging protocol. MetaPath integrates any tokenized assets. What did Tim Draper just tell us about tokenized assets, the tokenization? What did we find out from Animoca Brands at the very beginning of this? Let me remind you, because you're getting this information, but I'm trying to walk through it slowly. Animoca Brands said the slowing down of cross-border payments, the increasing of regulation, and tokenization. MetaPath is on the B2 network, who's primarily servicing Asia countries, but MetaPath connects it globally and maintains its connection to the United States, Asia, and China. See, that's how you can be in 2, 3, or multiple places at one time. Regulation is going to be different, and therefore the products have to be different. So that's why in the United States, it's called MetaPath. But the Asian countries they service is called Path Protocol. Or is it? Well, let me tell you what you'll find out. MetaPath, if you look at it and dig deeper, you'll find that it does business as Path Finance. This is a DBA. So now we have another connection. So we still look at the ecosystem. We still find out the thing that I've been trying to show you. Well, that means whether it's called MetaPath, Path Protocol, or Path Finance, the product name changed, but the service area is still the same. It services United States, Asia, it services Singapore. Well, let's go back to the very beginning, because see, I don't want to get too far out, but let's read the bottom of this product. Let's see what Animoca Brands and Plume Network said. Let's read at the very bottom. Combined with regulatory infrastructure, collaboration through ongoing pilots like the work Plume has done in 2025 in the US and Hong Kong. Where is Hong Kong? Is that an Asian country? Is it a coincidence? Let's read it one more time. At the very bottom, look, we see at the top, supervise tokenized assets, increasing compliance costs, and slowing of cross-border adoption. So we're finding out Animoca Brands talks about real-world assets. They talk about Plume. They specifically put Plume Network in Hong Kong and United States. They didn't have to do that. Animoca Brands is based out of China-based and also Japan, and also the United States. That's not a coincidence. Hong Kong, United States. They talk about the tokenization. They talk about the increased regulation. They also talk about what we see here, the securities regulators and cross-border payments. Path Protocol, cross-border payments. Path Finance, cross-border payments. MetaPath, cross-border payments. Different countries, different continents, different names, same product. Don't let it confuse you. Money doesn't care about names. Money, like Tim Draper, how he's spotting them, he's behind them. He makes it happen. Money changes the name to fit the regulatory compliance of that country. So let's stop getting tribal. Let's get into this. So we go back through this, and we just found out that Path Protocol is MetaPath. And we found out that Path Protocol is on the B2 network. We found out that MetaPath is also called Path Finance. Watch this, folks. We found out that Swift Blockchain is called Path Finance. Swift Blockchain owns the intellectual property of MetaPath. Therefore, it doesn't matter what they do business as. They all are Swift Blockchain. Why does that matter? It matters because Arcanium Capital invested to create MetaPath. This is what you need to know. Arcanium Capital, which is based out of Bermuda, oh, you're about to see it, is invested in by Tim Draper. And their CEO, James McDowell, went to Draper University. But we're still not done. Do you remember how this connects to Plume? Plume has submitted formal comments to the Bermuda Monetary Discussion paper on asset tokenization. This supports our global initiative for safe, secure, tokenized real-world assets through balanced policy. We commend the Bermuda Monetary Authority. We found that out. You think it's a coincidence? Tim Draper, who invested. No. Let's keep going. You're not getting that yet. We're going to keep following this trail. So we just found out Bermuda, and we found out that Arcanium Capital invested into MetaPath through Path Finance. We found out the different name, Path Finance. It was called what? It's called MetaPath, all the same property owned by Swift Blockchain. We found out that it's a tokenized assets. Any cryptocurrencies, any products can go through it to service who? Asia, Singapore, and United States. We found out Path Protocol is still MetaPath on the B2 network. We found out the B2 network housed this product, Path Protocol, and then we see it right here for you to see Path Protocol. And that's not even the half of it. Let's keep getting into it. So we go further, folks, and we're following the money. We keep seeing, we can keep finding these patterns and connections. What do we find out? Arcanium Capital, remember right here? Arcanium Capital was invested in by Animoca Brands. Wait a minute. That's right. Animoca Brands and Tim Draper invested in the creation of all the projects you see there. New Money Network. That means the Swift Blockchain, Plume Network, B2 Network, Path Protocol, and MetaPath. The same money. The same billionaires. Animoca Brands, $6 billion company, multi-millionaire. Yatsu on the right-hand side of Animoca Brands. Tim Draper, the same person who invested in a funding for Swift Blockchain and invested in Arcanium Capital. Arcanium Capital took $200,000. Where did they invest in? MetaPath. MetaPath has multiple names, and it appears on the B2 network. Animoca Brands then invested as a backer for the B2 network. And then we see Tim Draper's product, which is Swift Blockchain, because Swift Blockchain owns MetaPath, appear on the B2 network. And then we see a connection as well to Plume. What do we find? We find out this. As I just showed you, look at this by itself. The data's right there. But what really, really is interesting is that you pay attention, you can see it appear again. Now we got Hashkey, OKX Ventures, and Animoca Ventures. And if you didn't know already, that's correct. If we go right here, that's Yatsu, OKX Ventures. There he appears again, and Hashkey. And if you didn't know, those same backers are the same individual who backed most of the projects, including Plume Network. They are a backer as well. Now, remember I talked about Polygon earlier? I'm trying to show you that this is not happenstance or coincidence. Do you want to focus on one project? Probably so. Or do you want to filter it down so that you can find the ones who have the most backing, who these big hedge funds and big billionaires who want to make sure that their money is going to expand? What if we just put our coattails in the same places as they are moving? We hold on to those coattails and we move up with them. Plume, Ernst & Young. Why has that sound so familiar? Remember, what's the three things I told you at the beginning of this conversation? We're going to talk about Plume Network, B2 Network, and Swift Blockchain and their connections. Nothing has changed. Don't get distracted. Plume, Ernst & Young. Plume welcomes Privacy Layer 3 Nightfall to Advanced Institutional RWA. Nightfall comes to Plume. Privacy meets scale for institutional investors. And you know who makes Nightfall? Ernst & Young. Polygon last year took over, and they have a collaboration for 4 zero-knowledge proof technologies. That's the technology that uses for security infrastructure. B2 Network integrates zero-knowledge proof technologies, zero-knowledge roll-ups as well. This is not a coincidence. Plume has a relationship with Ernst & Young, which is also connected in collaboration with Polygon. Polygon, Ernst & Young, providing a zero-knowledge proof technology. That technology is being utilized as well on the B2 network, which is secures through zero-knowledge roll-ups as well. This is not a coincidence, folks. Did you know the Animoca Brands also has a connection to Polygon's Nightfall? That's not the conversation today. What I want you to focus on is it a coincidence, or should we be paying attention to these networks? Plume Network, integrated with B2 Network, integrated with what else? Swift, Plume, B2 Network. That's what I want you to see. So we've seen this right now. We see the countries. I'm going to keep going back because the purpose of this conversation is that you are in trouble, folks. We are looking at data like never before. Networks after networks, names after names. What do you focus on? That is what I want you to see. So as we filter it down to what matters, I don't want the worm on the hook. I want the bait's creator. I'm talking about whoever created the fishing pole. I don't want them. I want who invested the money to create the fishing pole, the material that went into the fishing pole. I don't want them. I want to go back even further. I want the person who thought of the company to create the company to make the fishing pole. That's where we're going back to. Follow that money. Now, let's keep going so we can see what else we see here. So let's bring it back to the article. We started with the article. Now we're halfway through. We're going to go through this part of the article. This is what we found out. This is what it was said in the article. 2026, regulation will remain central to RWA's development in 2026, continuing the momentum seen in 2025. The initiatives such as the Genius Act in the U.S. and a clear pathway to bring RWAs on chain emerging in the other jurisdictions like Bermuda, Hong Kong, Japan, Singapore, South Korea, and the UAE, to name a few. Much of the regulatory focus is concentrated on stable coins, the original real-world assets. Let me look at you right in the face. I told you that a stable coin is a real-world asset. Let's read it again. To name a few, they just gave the countries. I'm not going to say them again, but much of this regulatory focus is concentrated on stable coins, comma, the original real world asset, reflecting government's growing interest in ensuring safe issuance, supervision, and integration in existing financial frameworks. Folks, don't be deceived. Plume is number one in real world assets. And on top of that, SWIFT blockchain can transfer any tokenized assets, cryptocurrencies, for cross-border payments. Animoca Brands is Web3, the next internet. This is not a coincidence. And they even give you a roadmap. Where's the roadmap? Bermuda, Hong Kong, Japan, Singapore, South Korea. Bermuda, Hong Kong, Singapore, Switzerland, UAE, United States. Not a coincidence, folks. This is called the beginning, the alpha, and that's get you to the omega. So you learn as you follow me. I want you to consider become a member. My members have been seeing this since the beginning of 2025. I did a connected series. Those are people who subscribe to me. That's the free network. That was at the January 2025. I told you about connections that happened way before that happened. Then I started a membership. So if you don't know that, press join right now. You can become a member, scan my QR codes and any of my videos you might see come up. You can become a member, but let's talk about what you saw as a member because you didn't see it if you wasn't a member. So this is what you found out. I told you that Tavis Digital was connected to Arcanium Capital, and that was huge because that comes from Swiss and a Switzerland, a regulated connection through Arcanium Capital, Draper Ventures, and Polygon. Now, you may not know who these people are, but look at who's behind the scenes. Did you say Switzerland right there? I told you Switzerland. Let's go back to the very beginning because I give credit where credit's due. Let's go back. What did Blackrue show you? Look at the far right behind the SWIFT blockchain flag, Switzerland, England, and United States. He told you this 2 years ago. My earliest is 1 year ago. Blackrue Investing shared this connection from the Switzerland to now. What is that connection? Let me share with you folks how the money's flowing. This is in a recent conversation I did with my friend, Blackrue Investing. I'm going to share with you another 120 seconds of the connections, and then we're going to finish this out so you can have this information and be empowered by this information. This is what we said. Check this out, and then let's get right into it. This is going to go to Blackrue Investing and me talking about how the money flows so you can understand what Tim Draper and them are doing. This is what they're doing. This is a part of the series. So here we go. Right here is Arcanium Capital. You need to understand why that's important. Shima Capital, Arcanium Capital, both invested $200,000 each, $400,000 together. They invested one in 2021, one in 2022. Intellectual property is owned by SWIFT blockchain. Arcanium Capital is here. Let's read it. They was in Dover, Delaware. It's where they started. Who invested into it? Draper University Ventures. That's Tim Draper. Alpha Innovations is the number one person who invested, and then the third is Draper University. Now, I understand you don't know who Alpha Innovations is yet unless you watch the series, but let's go back to where they from. Alpha Innovations are connected to Switzerland, and let's bring up why that's important, because I'm going to answer your question about staking. So if we look at Switzerland and we look at Bermuda, we look at Alpha Innovations, there's money that flowed from these. Here is someone called Tushar Agrawal Persistence, and they're connected to this place called TD. Now that's Tavis Digital, Draper, Arcadium Capital, and Polygon. Now, why is that important? Because what does Persistence do? Who is this person? Why are they connected? Well, let's see how they're connected to Tim Draper. Cred Shields and Persistence and Draper, they both invested in a project together. Now, this project, Persistence, is in Singapore, the same place that Swift Blockchain became a company in 2017. So now we see Tushar Agrawal and this company you don't know about called Persistence. And you see Tim Draper also invested in Cred Shields. Who is Cred Shields? Well, here's the CEO, Kunal Shields. I'm about to answer your question. Let's see why is that important. Kunal Shah, which is the same person you see here, that you saw in the earlier one, that's put underneath that. I put it in green. He has served as the part-time partner at Y Combinator and an advisor to Sequoia Capital. And he is the angel investor, founder of Cred, and previously founded Free Charge. We got him as an advisor. Tim Draper also invested. And we also see that Sequoia Capital, this man is an advisor, Sequoia Capital. Now, Sequoia Capital is in India. Now, why is that important? Right back up to the top, Arcadium Capital. And Arcadium Capital invest in India projects. And Tim Draper, the CEO of Arcadium Capital, went to Draper University. Let's get back to Persistence. So we got Persistence here. And we got that connection with Tushar Agrawal. There should be only one connection, but wait a minute. Here comes MetaPath. Arcadium Capital invested into MetaPath, which is connected with blockchain. Persistence is invested in by Arcadium Capital and connected to the Swiss banks in both Bermuda and also Switzerland. Now, the connection of that money that Tim Draper was able to get to start Swift Blockchain came all the way from Switzerland through these locations. And what does Persistence do? If you go to Swift Blockchain's MetaPath, you'll see the token Persistence is token number 233263. And what do they do? Well, Persistence tokenizes through staking the product that Tavis Digital, the one that you see at the very far right, creates, which is a regulated stock portfolio, which is the equivalent of BlackRock of Switzerland. Persistence has been in business with them since 2020. So Persistence creates the tokenized staking product, which is connected to Arcadium, and they are on the MetaPath blockchain. And Tim Draper, who is invested in Cred Shields, with their Persistence a second time, has a product that connects to tokenized assets, connected to money rails from Bermuda to Switzerland. And Polygon also led the investments to Sequoia Capital in India, SoftBank, Galaxy, Republican, in the exact same year, February the 7th of 2022. So what the connection to the staking is, the money comes from Switzerland. It gets tokenized and staking products for institutional companies that are connected to the Switzerland banks and institutions globally, worldwide. Then the money flows from Switzerland to Bermuda through Alpha Innovations, and then it's connected to MetaPath. And MetaPath, using Swift Blockchain, is the blockchain token utilized for free transfers, but they charge a fee. So the Chinese and US and international, same money, all using MetaPath as the name. It's a company with a different name, MetaPath, but its Swift Blockchain is the underlying currency, even all the way to Switzerland, for billions of dollars to run through when it goes live for staking products for institutional investors. Not a coincidence. Folks, what you saw there was the complexity broken down into 3 primary conversations that we started with. Plume Network, the B2 network, and SWIFT blockchain are integrated, intertwined on purpose. So either we're totally wrong about this or we're right. This connection was discussed again, December 2025. I brought this out. It says the Plume report. I gave you a sneak peek, the B2 network. It was a prediction that I gave you at a particular time. Let me show that to you so that we're on the same page. I started talking about this in the Connected series, January of 2025. Let's do some math here. And needless to say, after you got that information in January 2025, where I said there were some connections that y'all need to pay attention to, the Plume report, I reported this to you. Sure enough, halfway through the year, around, I would think it's about May 2025, I'm not exactly sure, B2 Network partnered with Plume. It was reported on Coinformia, and they partnered. How could I see that? Let's see here. World Liberty Finance talked about beforehand on the Connected series, saw the connections. January, sure enough, later on that year in 2025, we see even in 2026, they're talking about they're connected now. Just must be a coincidence. There was no roadmap. Blackrue Investing, I'm going to give him his props. I'm going to keep giving him his props because it was essential. I would have never seen the importance, but 2 years ago, he talked about and gave hundreds of videos. He's talked about this. But look again, way in the back of his image, Switzerland, England, and United States. 3 generations back. This is not a coincidence that Tim Draper invested into Arcanium Capital, who made a deal with Tavis Digital, which is all the way in Switzerland. And Arcanium Capital was invested in by this Switzerland company, which is the equivalent company on their approved network, just like the SEC. Their products is staking, and they stake as a asset class that they give big players yield from. And that was the same money that ultimately put $200,000. They literally, Arcanium Capital, took the money from them and invested into Tim Draper's network, SWIFT blockchain. Now, let's talk about this a little bit deeper. So now that we know that B2 Network is not just a coincidence that I said it would happen, that they are partnered, verified to be a partner, and we understand that the B2 Network uses Bitcoin that normally has no intrinsic value, but is a store of value, and it gives people the ability to build products off of it. Path Protocol builds products off the B2 Network, off its own protocol within the B2 Network, I should say, in the ecosystem. We have a direct connection. We found that SWIFT blockchain, Tim Draper, Arcanium Capital, out of where? Bermuda. SWIFT blockchain, which owns the derivative in Japan. SWIFT blockchain, which first started in China. And Plume Network, who we found out from Arcanium Capital and also Animoca Brands, was working in Hong Kong and the United States. Do you think this is a coincidence? The money rails are laid years before we're here in 2026. You're just now catching up. So we got to focus on this. We got to see the fact that the networks, the individuals have a purpose They are cornering the market, and the Bitcoin itself is being targeted. Plume is in this network. Path is in this network. Asia is in this network. There's the most people in those countries. And when they start to open the valves and the money flows, you can benefit by spotting it early. Now, in 2024, 2 years ago, at the same time frame, it's when I first brought the B2 network to your attention. So while Blackrue, my friend, was focusing on Tim Draper and showing you the money behind the money, I was showing you the network that was being ignored. Now, there was a two-part series. Look in the pictures right there. I put it in red. Tim Draper, Yatsu, and we see Arcanium Capitals, and we also see those three individuals 2 years ago, June of 2024. I made a prediction. I said January 2025, certain things were going to happen. Now, we see these things come to fruition in the Plume report, which comes to my members only. You can get that full report. Press join if you want this type of content. I don't give a lot of quantity, I give quality. And so if you want to see these connections, make sure you join. At the analyst level, you get all these reports that are not publicly released, so you can get ahead. Now, I want you to know what the next predictions are and what we are seeing. First, we got Hamilton Lane, we got Securitize, and BlackRock. September 2025, I told you for the fourth time that Securitize would partner with Plume Network. Sure enough, throughout that time, before they partnered with them, but when I was only seeing the connections, they partnered with Plume. Securitize is one of the biggest connected to BlackRock, Hamilton Lane, and others. But there's more. We did a comparison with SWFT Coin and the B2 network, January of 2026. I showed you the interconnections between SWFT blockchain and also B2 network, which identified multiple other connections that you should pay attention to. You can find this if you look, but this is what you should know. What's happening next? September 23rd of 2025, this is what it's on my radar. There is a South Korea move. World Liberty Finance signed a global DeFi MOU, retail and stablecoin. BitThumb is who they're going through. BitThumb and WLFI, World Liberty Finance, the crypto enterprise linked to the Trump family, announced the signing of a MOU to explore cross-border DeFi products, focusing on retail adoption, interoperability, and stablecoin integration alongside talks with Circle. Recent market analysis indicate the central role of stablecoins in cross-border flows and digital payments, with volumes depending on token and period measure trillions in dollars monthly in chain analysis. So why is that important? SWFT blockchain has a very special connection with BitThumb. I've told you these are not coincidences. We're just getting there years before it happens. And then it's starting to come open and people are seeing it now. SWFT blockchain, as well as this connection right here on the screen, are connected to South Korea. BitThumb is one of the largest exchanges for South Korea. Let me tell you something. In the past, when South Korea has started a product, that's when I've seen 10x in over 2 projects, 10x. When that money rolls through, it happened with SWFT blockchain, it happened with Tailcoin. This has happened in the recent 3 to 4 years. This is huge. Now, you need to understand something very important about this connection. Synthetic wrappers and native issuance and not a zero-sum game. This is Animoca Brands and Plume. The debate between synthetic wrappers and native issuance is not a zero-sum game. Native issuance is ultimately the stronger and more scalable model of tokenized RWAs because it aligns with legal asset and settlement process and on-chain preservation from the start. It removes layers of operation and legal complexity. Now, with that being said, it allows issuers and investors to fully benefit from programmability, composability, and transparent on-chain life cycle management. However, the path to widespread native issuance is long and tricky. It requires regulatory clarity, upgraded market infrastructure. I know y'all paying attention to this. Issues readiness and more mature standards for custody, compliance, and transfer mechanics. Until those pieces are in place, wrappers will continue to fill an important role. This is not unique to crypto. In traditional finance, wrappers are everywhere. SVPs, ADRs, feeder funds, and structured notes all serve a package underlying assets in different jurisdictions, investor types, or distribution channels. Now, let's see what this is about. What is this saying? B2 Network has ZK rollups, zero knowledge rollups. It's using Bitcoin as the underlying network because people don't use Bitcoin. These are programmers. These are people who are building off of Bitcoin as a network, as it is the biggest, most vast, the most used, yet the least sold network. It's stable and secure. You know how much money it would take to buy 51% of all the Bitcoin in the world to do an attack on it? You're not doing it. It's not even possible. So with that being said, these products, like Tim Draper said, that are going to be like Microsoft, people who are developing off of that are using these as a wrapper. Look at this network as a wrapper of innovation. And look at Tim Draper taking advantage of a space early by putting his network of cross-border payments, putting Plume Network of its ability to use stablecoins and real-world assets, putting them all together in the B2 network to do what? To take advantage of Bitcoin itself. But you don't believe me, so let me share this with you. This is Tim Draper. He'll let him tell you himself. This is what he said.
Recently, which really caught my eye. Now, a lot of people talk about like hyper Bitcoinization. You said that you can see Bitcoin replacing the dollar, but you put a time frame on it. You said within the next decade, and you also mentioned like a fiat run where people lose confidence in the US dollar. And I was wondering, for you, what's the primary driver of that? Is it the strength of Bitcoin or is it the weakness of the dollar?
Well, okay, so over the last 7 years, a dollar has bought, I guess 7 years ago, it bought about 14,000 Satoshis. And today it buys about 800 Satoshis. Each year, the dollar, sure, it loses 5 or 10% to inflation, but against Bitcoin, it's losing about 50%. People are going to start recognizing that. They're going to say, well, wait a second. Why am I holding this currency that drops 50% a year against Bitcoin when I could be holding Bitcoin? And so retailers are going to start seeing that, and they're going to say, I accept Bitcoin. And then in about, after the retailers start getting more and more people paying Bitcoin, they're going to say, we only take Bitcoin. At that point, it's only if retailers only take Bitcoin, then people are going to run to the banks and say, I need my dollars out because I need to buy my food, clothing, and shelter. And all my retailers only are taking Bitcoin. So I think that's a process that could happen in the next decade.
You said
that's a process that can happen in the next decade. Let's sum this up. This is what we need to see. I've already showed you through forensic, detailed, honed in analysis that I took these big networks with hundreds of cryptocurrencies and was able to filter them down to their basic parts. And from there, we tracked them backwards and we connected them to the companies. And from there, we tracked it backwards and we connected to the networks and the money. And from there, we connected to the person. And then from there, we see the plan, the motive. We see the intentionality, and we can spot the early stage projects that the actual money is moving into. Not that content creator who's shilling you with a rocket ship and telling you what you want to hear. I'm talking about we can see the intentionality through the network. This is what we need to see as well. Real world assets. This is from Plume article as well. Private credit is increasing. US dollars, tokenized values increasing. Corporate bonds increasing. This is all real world assets, tokenized value versus total addressable market, folks. US Treasury debt increasing. Non-US government debt increasing. Stocks increasing. Commodities increasing. Real estate increasing. Plume Network can take care of all of those. And MetaPath, Swift blockchain is the token. So if you're trying to invest into the token, you got to find Swift blockchain. Don't worry about the value of it now. Understand the connection of it. See what they're doing. All of that tokenized assets can transfer. Cross-border payments, finance, fiat, all of that can be utilized within this network. Same backers, Animoca Brands, invested in both Plume Network, Swift blockchain through MetaPath. Tim Draper, still there. It's not a coincidence, folks. And I'm going to go one step further. I want you to understand that this is the standard. Now, if you see here, Animoca Brands recently had dialogue at Davos. Now, this is recent, folks. I need you to see what they're doing. At the left-hand side, who are they seen with? Let's see what they said. Animoca Brands hosted an exclusive Davos accredited program on how tokenization is reshaping capital markets through 2030. So let me just stop you right there. Today, 2026, they're talking about 4 years in advance. Do you want to get there early? Let's talk about it. Bringing together global leaders, including Hong Kong's financial secretary. Wait a minute, didn't Plume start this conversation with talking about the United States connections and what they did in 2025 and Hong Kong? Is it a coincidence? I think not. And what else they say? They said who's there with them in the picture? Hong Kong's financial secretary, the Honorable Paul Chan, who highlighted Hong Kong's proactive yet prudent approach to digital asset development, guided by the principle of same activity, same risk, same regulation. The program also featured Franklin Templeton, CEO Jenny Johnson, and also Yatsu, co-founder, executive chairman of Animoca Brands. Who else is with him? Let's see here. We also have Alan Liu, chief business officer of Animoca Brands. And who else we have here? We also have Jenny Johnson, CEO of Franklin Templeton, and we see Animoca Brands right beside them. Franklin Templeton also is connected to Plume Network. This falls into one of the categories we was talking about earlier, as well as Hampton Lane. These are products that they have with Plume or real world assets. And here we see Animoca Brands again. The ultimate gateway Swift is making moves in. I have upcoming AI series for Swift blockchain. If you're watching Plume, or you want the B2 coverage, you need to also pay attention to Swift. There is a connection here, and you got to pay attention to all three of these, because if you don't, you're going to lose the connection, because it's no reason for me to keep talking about Swift blockchain, acting like it doesn't have any connection to Plume Network and then B2 Network as an independent entity when I see and have shown you that they're integrated. So where are we at, folks? We're at where we began, the Bitcoin standard. Regulation centered to RWA development. This is the same article, Animoca Brands, and also with the Plume Network, Chris Yin. Regulation remains the gating factor to global scale. Jurisdictions differ in how they classify and supervise tokenized assets. We found this out. Regulation will remain in development in 2026, like Bermuda, Hong Kong, Japan, Singapore, South Korea, and the UAE. Now, we go back. You need to pay attention to my Swift Coin series, the AI series. The next episode we're coming up, we're going to be talking about the South Korea play. We're going to be talking about Swift Japan and the gateway to Korea. Why? Because we found out way up here that there's a South Korea play with World Liberty Finance with BitThumb. And we know that Swift Coin has a special relationship with BitThumb itself, which is in South Korea. And I've seen 2 10Xs and products I've been in when I paid attention to South Korea, when no one else saw those. So is it important? The Bitcoin standard that Tim Draper has been saying throughout this conversation, is it important? Well, let's see if it's important. This is what he said about that. The last and final conversation about Tim Draper for today. He said this.
Do you think there will be a run on fiat banks and people will move to the Bitcoin standard? What led you to come to this conclusion, and when do you see this happening?
Okay, so my father gave me $1 million bill. And I said, whoa, I was 10 years old. Wow, this is awesome, $1 million. What can I do with it? And he said, nothing. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, that's Confederate money. And the Confederates lost the war to the Union. And so there was huge inflation in Confederate money, and people were paying $1 million for just like $1 of Union money. And it was a desperate time for the Confederates. Nobody wanted Confederate money. Wasn't valuable anymore because the Union won the war, and that was the way the U.S. government was going to operate. In effect, we're going through a similar time now where fiat currency relies on banks and governments to be your trusted third party. And if you rely on a bank and a government to be your trusted third party, it's worked for a long time, 100 years plus. But now we have better technology, and we can rely on software for our money. And that trusted third party can be even better trusted because we're using software instead of the banks and the government. And it can be have less friction, and it can be cheaper to operate. So it can move much faster.
You think that?
So what have we learned, folks? We've learned there's 3 projects that you need to pay attention to that I've covered, that I will continue to cover. At the very beginning, I brought you Animoca Brands, showed you the connection, and Tim Draper. These are called anchors. I anchored this conversation on those individuals. Those anchors showed us very clearly, without mistake. You can look it up yourself. I share it with you. Please take a look at the visuals. Put it on big screen so you don't miss anything. That's why I go through this. The New Money Network, Swift Blockchain, Plume Network, the B2 Network. The B2 Network, you can find that particular token on Kraken. This is not an endorsement for the project, but I'm just letting you know for those who might be interested in learning where you can get this from. Go to CoinMarketCap and you can see all the different marketplaces, but Kraken is one that you can find. You can transfer fiat or transfer Bitcoin or Ethereum, whatever you want to Kraken, purchase on Kraken Pro, and then you can transfer it to whatever wallet of your choice. Swift Blockchain is on Coinbase and it's multiple other places. Plume Network is on Coinbase and multiple other places. That is the conversation. This is the new financial network. And I want to give shout out to Blackrue Investing for the resource that I utilize to look at my research after I had found other connections. I went to Blackrue Investing and watched his videos on Tim Draper. I can tell you now, they are the most in-depth resource you will find on Tim Draper anywhere, period. So make sure you look at these videos. I would suggest, again, before we leave, you look at the 2024 video, Crypto Rue podcast, Blackrue Investing, Tim Draper, the Quiet King to start off with. Second, look at Swift Coin Blockchain, Draper, 3 generations of Drapers. And then third, And he has more, but these are the three anchors I think you should pay attention to. SWIFT, Tim Draper, banks and exchanges control the flow of money. That brought us to how Tim Draper spots the next big startup. And I want you to know that independently, I was able to research, and all roads led back to this connection. And it is important to that we found this. Folks, that is everything for this conversation. I know I went a little bit longer than I anticipated, but I hope that you found this helpful. Now, I am going to take a moment to see if there's any questions you have. If you do, feel free to comment. If not, then we'll be short-lived and then we'll get off this video. Thank you for watching the Underdog Research Channel, and let me see what questions you may have. What's going on, everyone? Thank you for being here today. If you have any questions, let's go ahead and ask those questions. I see you in the chat. Let me go ahead and put those who came to this long conversation. Let's put you up here. We got Mike Main. What's good, everyone? He's also Underdog Research member. Want to make sure I shout my members out. That's at the analyst level. He's been getting this information much before it came to fruition. So if you want to be like Mike Main, make sure y'all become members, folks. If you are anything other than the analyst level, you'll get first view to any of my public videos, and then you'll get some exclusive access. But the analyst level gives you videos that I don't post publicly. All right. We also have Hiro Tanami, also a member of the Underdog Research Channel. He says MetaPath was at Davos at the WEF building networking. So he's telling you about a recent conversation. We know we saw the president of the United States and other world leaders there at Davos. We also saw that MetaPath, from what he is saying, showed up at this, making connections, and that means there's more to happen. They're not stagnant, they're being quiet, and that's for a reason. All right. We got Me Too 6871 taught me something today. Thank you very much. I'm glad that you found this interesting. I know it's a lot of information, but hopefully I narrowed it down to those three topics: Plume, B2 Network, and also Swift blockchain and its connections. This will be time coded and then put it out there for you guys. So make sure you go back and look at this if you have questions in my other videos. FMJ Crypto, what's up, guys? I'm late to the party. Can we restart? Oh, man, you have to hit it on the fly back. You know, it's going to be there for your watch, but it's good for you to be here. Thank you very much for being here. All right. I don't see any other questions. So let me put this out here, folks. I don't have my code here right now, but if you are interested in becoming a member, I do want to share this with you so that you have an opportunity. Some people may be interested, some people may not be interested. But if you are interested in becoming a member, let me share my QR code with you. All right. So here is the QR code. I do a Plume report each week. One will be coming up in the next 48 hours from the time you see this video. It will already have been released, likely for some of you. You just simply scan the QR code or go to description and press join, or links in the description. If you scan the one on the left-hand side, that'll give you the Plume report activity and sentiment of activity in Plume. You scan the one on the right-hand side, that goes to my private network. That is a real-world asset report. I go to RWA.xyz. I look at the global RWAs everywhere. I look at Plume specifically, and I give you insights about the capital and where it's moving. We're mature investors around here. So the information I give you is not for financial advice. It is for education, but you can utilize it to your advantage. I do this work for you so that you have everything in one spot. So if you watch the Plume report, it will save you hours, if not days, from going online, going to Plume Network, looking through its activity, reading every post. I encourage you to do that anyway, but if you want to get it all in one spot, I take out the most important things I think are important for you to know. I sift through it and I get data from it that you don't get, such as the analytics, how people are engaging, what they're talking about, good or bad. I give it to you so you can have that for you. The real world assets report, that one is a little bit different. Again, you've got Polygon, you got Plume, you got many players, Ondo, that are in this space of real world assets, and they're on rwa.xyz. I take that report, I see what's happening, I break it down like a technical analysis, but not with price action, but with capital. Who's moved money? Where is it going? how much are people into it, how many wallets, and what does it do? That's once every 30 days. So coming up this week, there will be a Plume RWA report for my members only. Scan that QR code and you get that as well. All right, let's see what else we got here and see who else is there. We have the whole ecosystem ready for east to west. Absolutely. The whole ecosystem is ready for east to west for sure. I agree with you. We got and Laugh Out Loud, FMJ. We got Hero Tommy 606. ZK Sync is pumping today while the market is bleeding. So again, if that's another video I've been talking about since January of 2025, I told my community that I'll be talking about the money system, specifically in zero knowledge technologies. So go to my videos. If you're not a member, press subscribe to become a follower of Underdog Research Channel. Press join to become a member. In that, since 2025, I've been bringing this up. Let me share this with you here. Let's see if I can find it. And here we go. The Connected series. So a Connected series is a free series. This is a part of the Connected series, this video today. This is a free series, costs you nothing but your time for you to come and see some of the connections. But I will say that the more in-depth I go with the connections, showing you connections you probably didn't know about, I provide people and my members a more detailed, specific, targeted connection so you can see what's happening. So right now you're getting a piece of that. So I hope that you take advantage of it. If you want to take advantage of it, become a member. And that is ZK Sync. ZK Sync is one of the ones I talked about, but it's not ZK Sync I want you to focus on. In the Connected series, I focus on zero knowledge technologies. There's zero knowledge proofs. There's zero knowledge snarks. Succinct snarks are different. I've been talking about that for 5 years. And this year, I thought I would bring us more in depth. So 2025 to 2026, I brought you more in depth to focus on it. You got that in the Connected series. But in the paid membership, which is about 66 cents a day, so about $19.99 a month for this particular one on YouTube, not excluding the one I have a membership on Uscreen, this one provides you more in depth. So listen, you'll spend 20 bucks on junk food. You'll spend 20 bucks on a lot of things, but you won't spend 20 bucks on knowledge, which could help you. I don't understand that aspect. You know, I'm about to get, you know, I make my moves. So hopefully you'll make your move. So make sure that you become a member if you want to see that. Zero knowledge technology, great. Let's see. Ondo is going to hit hard. Absolutely. Ondo is going to be hitting hard. I think so. Now, the thing about Ondo, though, I think Ondo, people don't realize, is how he partnered with Plume. His partner has a connection with BlackRock. I think that Plume is at a lower value in cost-wise. And so, therefore, with Plume currently, I believe, at about 50-something million market cap, maybe a little bit more at this time. I mean, and it has a good potential that you can see a nice run. Now, I don't believe in hodling forever, but I do think that you can use it. RWAs is the conversation now and in the future, and there's more to come. So make sure y'all check in with me each week on the Plume Report. Again, I don't have a lot of quantity of videos. I'd put quality. So I will post, and I always try to post. And I have podcasts, I have everything. So I just wanted to make sure y'all knew that. All right, we also have Me Too 6871. Hope it all hits and rewards those who are invested and believe. I'm with you on that, brother. Absolutely. Absolutely. I absolutely am with you. So let me pull this up while we're here as we finish out this conversation. I want to make sure I put this back up. So that is the conversation. Today, we went over a lot of things. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation. I don't see any additional questions or comments. And so I will be back this week for my members. Make sure you press join. You got to see the Swift Coin mini series. I am going to share this with you, the Swift Coin mini series before we go. This is already done. We are in the next set of conversations with Swift Coin, the AI series. But let me go to this one thing I want to show you. which is the Swift Coin mini series, which let's see here. If you don't know, I'll just show you this one right here. So there's 10 episodes in the Swift Coin mini series. Now we've moved on. That was 2025. These are from like October to the first of the year. I finished up that series as an essential series, 10 episodes. You want to watch the series. This is for my members only, and you want to watch it. It's worth it. You could binge it, but you'll get a lot of information to know. The new series is called Swift GPT Exposed. I go through a lot of money rails coming up. We'll be going through Swift Japan and its gateway to Korea. We'll be going through the South Korea play. This is going to touch on things like BitThumb. I'm giving you this a little sneak peek right now. And again, so far, we keep getting there early. It's not coincidences that I'm telling you about stuff years before or months before it comes to fruition. BitThumb, South Korea, remember I told you. Japan, BitThumb, South Korea, the gateway, and you'll be getting that through the Swift Coin GPT. Next episode's coming very soon, and make sure that if you already subscribed, you won't miss it. All right. That is all I have, folks. I have went over everything for today. Don't forget the conversation. And until next time, this has been the Underdog Research Channel. Thank you for watching.
Be the Plume going to start down, need permission, I stay real with it. Lay on foundation, know it's gon' build, bro, I been biddle with it. Your homeboy check the cash out, smart contracts with a cash out. Everybody want smoke till I turn the dare, show you where the house at. Spun the block, turns out I be in Blackrue. Protocol, treasuries, barns on me, got them padlocked. Been the best out, they can imitate. Get the best out, then you integrate. Ask Hondo, who Rambo, drew first blood, boy, I been a great. Everybody think they star boy, I'm in orbit. Stella still, hella Stella though. I like Swift better for the corporates. I'm the enterprise, I tokenize. Hamilton on chain. Zero knowledge, always never improvise. The White House, know my name.